Hey, it's me, Renee. We are going to do a video here, just a quick intro before you head into your next Gizmos lab. And I just want to start with this question of like, do you ever feel like your brain is just working? Like, man, that one really worked my brain. And maybe it's just me because I'm a lot older than you guys. But man, there are some times when it's just like, I can't take any more inputs. Like my brain has worked and you can just kind of feel these new connections happening in your brain. Well, that's kind of what we're going to do with this lab. It's kind of fun, actually. Not that all labs aren't fun, but this one's really fun, helping you make like new connections and try some things out. So there is a scientific term for that. It's called neuroplasticity. And what I wanted to do is just give you some little sound bites from this really cool podcast that I love to listen to. It's a daily podcast called Shortwave. And if you're into science at all, I highly recommend this podcast. Comes out like Monday through Fridays. They're just like 10, 15-minute little snippets of podcasts that just keep you up to date on all these different areas of science. But it's pretty cool. So there was this great podcast that came out about how scientists are trying to like map the neurons in the fruit fly brain as a way to learn about the human brain. And so I just have some quick snippets for you to listen to. And obviously, if you would be interested in hearing this whole podcast, I will make sure that I put a link in the assignment so you can listen to it. So just have a quick listen. They're about to talk about just how your brain is like this network of neurons and brain cells that are just like firing and connecting in order for you to learn new things. So have a listen.
Amazing power and the flexibility of a brain or of the internet comes from its wiring. It's the connections that turn all those neurons or computers into a network.
Yeah.
Think about a huge network of computers. That is what allows Google to look in a million places to find you that perfect recipe for, say, chocolate drizzled pork rinds. It's a thing. I checked.
We have very different search history, but I admire yours. This is good.
And much the same way, a huge network of neurons is what lets my brain make a good decision, like chocolate and pork, not for me. So, a lot of scientists believe you have to understand that entire network in order to figure out why we humans act the way we do.
Fascinating. This is so interesting. But
okay, so they're really just starting to talk about how the scientists are trying to figure out what is going on in our brain. But really what they're looking at are these neural pathways that we have that get established to help you practice and learn new things. And then this, as you start to practice and learn these new things, it becomes kind of ingrained in your brain and the neural pathways strengthen. And you're going to practice this in the lab. Again, it's kind of a fun one. Okay, so just one more quick little snippet from this podcast in the next slide. I'm just talking about how many neural connections we have possible in our brain.
Human brain has about 84 billion cells, and each one has about 10,000 connections. So if we approximate, it's about 100 billion cells and 10,000 100 billion connections.
that's
Okay, that is so many connections that we have to use in our brain. But with enough practice, these connections can actually potentially, connect and things can happen and you can establish new pathways in your brain. And the brain's ability to continually form these new connections is called neuroplasticity. And the reason why I want to look at this and have you focus on this in this music unit that we're doing, the science of music, is because one thing you're going to learn about is how important music can become in helping neuroplasticity of the brain. So as you start to age, how listening to new music and exposing yourself to new things can help with that neuroplasticity and wiring of the brain. And it's extremely powerful. All right, so here comes the question. Can you teach an old dog new tricks? This is that idea, again, of neuroplasticity. And your brain is going to be most plastic in the first years of childhood, but it will never lose its ability to change and learn. So by plastic, we mean, able to form those connections. Excuse me. Healthy but unused parts of the brain can be adapted for new purposes, even in adults. So I guess you can teach an old dog new tricks. Again, music is very important in this. And there is a field of study called like music therapy, where they do a lot of research on how music can help teach your brain and keep it fresh and young. Okay, so your Gizmos lab that's coming up is kind of a fun one. You're going to start to practice neural pathways and neuroplasticity by doing this lab. You're going to be using a computer mouse. It's second nature to most of us, right? If we move the mouse to the left, the cursor moves to the left. If we move it to the right, the cursor moves to the right. But what if that cursor suddenly started moving in the opposite direction? Can your brain adjust to the situation? And if so, how long does it take for your brain to get used to that? This is the subject of what we're going to do in the Reverse the Field Gizmos, and it's going to allow you to practice 3 different inversions or changes of direction and kind of time how fast it takes your brain to get used to that change. So enjoy. It's a fun one.